Well, guys, I may have solved my brake booster problem. I don't know yet. I haven't gone for a test ride yet, and I'm not going to be able to go for a test drive tonight. But I just spent the past couple hours trying to fit a Mercedes brake booster on my E36, and I got it in there. It's a booster out of an E430 or an SLK430. I think it was like a 98 to 03. I'll put it on the screen, but I bought it off of eBay like a year ago, and it only has 2 bolts. Let me flip you around. So this is the E36 booster that I was having problems with, and the Mercedes booster only uses 2 bolts, like here and here. So I didn't use this before because I didn't want to have just 2 bolts. I kind of looked at it and I was like, oh, that's not going to work. And then I threw this booster into this corner. Well, this thing actually fits quite well. The only thing that I had to work on was this clevis here, where it goes onto the brake pedal. It needed to be widened quite a bit. So I guess the Mercedes pedal is thinner. So what I did was I split it. I flattened it out a little bit, separated these ends, and then I found something that was the same size as the brake pedal, which happened to be the thick part of this adjustable wrench. You can see it's pretty close in there, and you got a little bit of wiggle room to play with. So I opened it up, and then I put this in here, and I put this in the vise and I squeezed it around this. So it, took the form of this. And it took me like 5 minutes to do that. And then I bolted it in place. This is it here. The master cylinder bolted right to it. So I did before when I was doing this, I made a spacer for the master cylinder to go. Because if you look, this is an E36 master cylinder. The depth in there that rod goes in is not as deep. This is the one that came with the booster. It's not as deep as this. And I made a spacer, but I couldn't find the spacer. I think it ended up in one of these buckets when I decided that I wasn't doing this. So I may have to pull the master off and put a spacer in there, because it kind of feels like the pedal goes down a little bit, and then I feel braking power. And all I did was roll the car forward in the garage and hit the brake, and roll it back and hit the brake, and it stops. So that's not a big deal. I can do that up top here. Just pull the master back, insert the spacer. Hopefully I can find it and then put it back in. But if you're doing an LS swap, especially if you're keeping the ABS and there's 2 different kinds of ABS. One has a pedal sensor that's like built into the master cylinder, I think, or something. And then the other one has this external pedal sensor here. And that sensor literally snapped right into the Mercedes booster. It was the same size and everything. And normally on the E36, that goes here. And then this is for your vacuum line. So on this, the vacuum line is underneath, right there. So I have the vacuum line hooked up, and it goes like that. And I'm going to redo this. I'm going to get a longer one that comes around here and hits it from the bottom, so that I can not have to worry about this deal right here. And then there's also another sensor on this booster that I'm not using. But look at all the space between the head and the booster. That's a ton of space. I can fit my hand down there. I can fit down to here on my hand. So I mean, that's a good bit of space. So if you're doing the LS swap and you're having problems with the booster and you want more clearance, all right, so if you're doing an LS swap and you're running like big valve covers because you have like some big rocker arms and upgraded valve train, this booster might be the way that you want to go. I'll let you know tomorrow when I take it for a test drive how it is, and if I do need to put that spacer in, I'll measure it so that y'all know the measurements, and I'll put the part number here on the screen and down in the description. I really wish that I recorded some of the install, but basically it's just take your old booster out, bolt this thing in. I don't really have to do much, just mess with that clevis, and that was it. So I'll update you guys when we get on the road with a test drive. I did start the car up, and it was like really rich, so I think I was leaking air even when I wasn't pressing the brake. So I'm going to revert the car back to an old map, and I'm just going to start fresh with it because I think I was getting air leaking even when I wasn't pressing the brake, and then when I pressed the brake it just got way worse. So because it was like 9-1 at idle, and it was not, it was like 14-1 at idle before. So hopefully this solves the issues that I was having with tuning and all that. So I'll catch up with you when I get a chance to go for a test drive. All right, so I picked up another one of the Mercedes brake boosters that I put on my car, and the reason for that is right now the brake pedal works great, but I lowered like the position of the pedal, so instead of being here, it's kind of here, and that is because of the difference. This is the Mercedes Master, and the difference between that piece in there, and this is an E36 one, and the piece in there, the depth of that is slightly off. So I made a spacer, custom, one-off piece. I made a spacer that will go inside of the Master, and I put like a beveled edge on the inside of it there that will go right onto this rod, and that will take up the difference between the two Masters. You might be able to run the Mercedes Master, but I'm not going to mess with that. The spacer is going to work perfect for me. I was using this to compare measurements. I got this off of eBay. It was like 50 bucks. Came with the Master. Not that I needed it, but that's the part number. It's the same one that I have on the car right now. I painted it black, so all the part numbers were gone off of it. The other part that you need to change when you're putting one of these Masters on, right, so that little spacer is to get rid of, there's like a little bit of slack. When you hit the brake pedal moves like maybe a 1/4 inch, and then you're pushing the master cylinder and getting braking. So that spacer will get rid of that slop. The difference with the park position of the pedal, on the factory booster, the pedal parks a little bit higher. On this one, it's like just slightly lower, which really isn't a problem. The brakes work fine, but I wanted the pedal to come back up fully to the factory position. So what I got this other booster for is this clevis here, and you can see the width difference. This is the piece that the brake pedal itself goes on, and then there's like a pin that goes through here. So this is the factory E36 piece. So you can see you have to widen the clevis, and I did this on the one that's on the car. Is I basically just spread them out, and then I put something in there that's the same width as the pedal, and then I squished it back on my vise, and that kind of like widened it and then put it back at the right angle. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually cut this off of the factory booster, because this thing's junk anyway. This is the one that was leaking like crazy. So I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to cut this clevis off, and I'm going to TIG weld this onto here at the right, so it's at the same height as this, and that'll give me the exact dimensions here. This is totally not necessary. I'm just doing this to kind of like put the finishing touches on the booster swap. It's really not necessary. The pedal just sits a little bit further down, and it's actually kind of nice because the pedal sits in a good spot. So the pedal actually sits in a good spot for heel towing, but the factory, I can't even pull it up, but the way that it sits is a little bit further up, more like where the clutch pedal's at. So I'm going to do that just to bring the pedal up, and then that spacer is going to get rid of, see this slop right here? And then I hit the master. So this right here doesn't do anything. That, you know, it's not much. And when you're driving, you hardly even notice it. But then it hits the master, and then you're pushing, and you get really good brake power there. So the spacer will get rid of this. And then once I do the clevis, it'll bring the pedal up so it's back even with the clutch. I also have a problem with the clutch where it's the same thing, where this doesn't do anything. And then here is where the clutch pedal is. And look at that. That's that monster twin disc clutch. Look at this. I could probably do this with one finger. I can push the clutch pedal down with one finger. That amazes me because back in the day in Subarus, I ran ACT clutches, and man, were they heavy. You sitting in traffic, you'd be hurting. You'd be really hurting. But this has some play in it, and I think there's an air bubble. And the more I drive the car, the smaller this goes. So I think maybe when I do the oil change tomorrow, I'll try bleeding the clutch again. But it's grabbing fine. It does engage pretty close off the floor here, but it's got a great feel. It feels like OEM. I also need to put this piece on. And the glove box, that little decorative piece fell off the glove box too. So yeah, again, I'll show the part number again for this. I know this is like a hot topic. A lot of people have problems with brake booster clearance, especially if you're running like, you know, some tall valve covers or something like that. On the LS swap cars at least. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Just kidding, I didn't forget. Here it is again.